After the
Hello again, it is I, Frieza700. We are back with some 40K lore. This time we are talking about the Iron Hands. That is right, the 10th Legion. A lot of people forget about this Legion, which I think is funny because they're actually really interesting, and I wish we knew more about them, but sadly, people don't give a fuck about this chapter because they're just weird. So let's get into it. Now, the Iron Hand chapter is a very interesting chapter because they're mostly cybernetic space marines. That's right, you heard it here, cybernetic space marines. In case you thought a giant genetic monstrosity wasn't deadly enough, these guys use cybernetics, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's a very clear distinction. Now, when a normal Astartes loses his limb, he'll get a prosthetic, sure, or he may just convert himself into a dreadnought, which is like this massive fucking tank. But the Iron Hands actually will deliberately remove their own hands, remove their own arms and legs, and replace them with cybernetics, because they believe that flesh is weak. That is their motto. Flesh is weak. So, as being such firm believers in this cold logic, that is what they adhere to. Now that makes it a little strange because the level of extent that they replace, they even replace the stuff that makes them space marines. So that enhanced medulla you got, yeah, get rid of it. That enhanced third lung you got, get rid of it. That second heart you got, get rid of it. The black carapace, get rid of it. They get rid of a lot of shit that a lot of space marines would be like, whoa.
This is heresy.
And it is. There is no other way around it. But for some reason, they're allowed to continue the way they do. And I think the reason is because they're isolationist. They don't talk to anybody. Especially the Raven Guard or the Salamanders. They really don't talk to those guys. And that's because those two legions were there during the Isvan 5 atrocity, where Ferrus Manus gave in to his emotion of rage and charged at the Primarch, Fulgrim, and because the Salamander chapter and the Raven Guard backed off, their Primarch died all alone. Now, they blame these chapters and they blame the other chapters for their Primarchs falling, and as such, they also blame their own Primarch. They actually go, you know what? If Ferrus Manus did not give in to his emotion, he'd be alive. If he just used cold logic, he'd be fine. So this is why they have emotion inhibitors. So there is no way you're going to scare these guys, and there is no way you're going to really fuck these guys' train of thought with emotion. Instead, they only see the logic and the objectivity of what you are saying. So if you're saying, oh, well, you can't win because they're so big and they're so scary, and no. They're going to look at your statement and go, okay, he's big. Well, that means I don't have to aim so carefully now. Besides that, thanks for your input. And he's going to brush you aside and he's going to continue onward on his fucking rampage. Now, one of the interesting things about this chapter about their cybernetic enhancements is that the Mechanicus is actually their dear friends. And a lot of their enhancements would be stuff that the Mechanicus themselves would either have or would be against. Because again, the cybernetic replacements get so severe that people only theorize that they're literally just brains in jars. Besides that, like, there's not much human left in them. The Iron Hands replace so much of their flesh with cybernetics for either battle reasons or just no reason at all. They just do it because they firmly believe flesh is weak. Now, when it comes to cybernetic replacements and what they choose to enhance their body with, it's really up to the individual. There is no decision. There is no cohesion in the Legion itself. My bad, I keep calling them Legion when they're really a Space Marine chapter now. But when they go ahead and give themselves better vision, like they literally replace their eyeballs so that way they're able to aim better. This isn't because they're a sniper. This isn't because they're a spotter in their squad. No, they don't do it. They just do it simply for them. And this is where it gets weird, is that you would think that they would all, as a squad at least, try to synergize their cybernetic enhancements, but they don't. Instead, they just do their own enhancements that best suit their needs. And It's actually interesting is that only until the 6th edition of Codex that they finally realized, we should probably put tanks in these guys' army roster. Because after all, these guys are good friends with the Mechanicus for some odd fucking reason. And they also look up to tanks and dreadnoughts as like the pinnacle of what they should be. So it makes no sense that they didn't have a lot of aircraft, a lot of tanks, and a lot of dreadnoughts. Well, after the 6th edition, they got a shit ton of stuff like that. But now, in the newest edition, they're starting to make them more melee focused, and I actually understand why. Because let's all think about this logically, like from a lore perspective. I'm a world eater, I like to be close. I want my chain axe to be in your face, to just shred that fucking helmet off. Well, it does me no good that I stabbed you in the stomach if you don't have a stomach, if it's literally just machinery. And that's where the Iron Hands are so fucking good at melee combat. Is that yes, it's kind of out of nowhere that they're starting to buff their melee enhancements, but at the same time it makes sense. Now, they don't have muscle, so they don't fatigue, but instead they have these cybernetic arms and replacements, so that way they're able to lift more weight than a normal Astartes is. There's even pictures of like a regular Iron Hand Space Marine firing 2 bolters at the same time, and he's firing it accurately. And the reason why is because he's got cybernetic arms, not regular ones. Because even enhanced humans are still not going to be able to do that much, especially when it comes to how much weight the bolter is. So this is why I really, really like the Iron Hands, is because they have no problems giving themselves a 3rd arm, a mechadendrite, like a 3rd arm, or, enhancing themselves in some way, shape, or form. Now, there are certain problems with the Legion. Now, this is kind of interesting, but, they have successor chapters, but they don't talk to their successor chapters, and their successor chapters don't talk to them. This is because, again, they prefer being alone. They don't really want to fight with anyone. Now, that seems really weird because the whole point of having successor chapters is usually they follow you to battle. They give you the firepower that you would have had if you were a full Legion. But they don't do that. Instead, when they find a world, they do this one tactic where they just simply analyze the world, and they analyze the situation it's in. Now, the Iron Council, which is the governing council of this chapter, they calculate the decision of this battle. So they will go, okay, there's a lot of fast troops, there's a lot of light troops, but there's no heavy artillery, no heavy aircraft, nothing like that. Okay, well, time for us to send in 531 Astartes with 10 tanks. And that is all they're gonna get, and that is all that they will send. So no matter what happens during this campaign on this planet, that is all that they're getting. They may pull their troops out, but that is it. They don't add, they don't recalculate. They just stick to that basic number and they just go, here you go, boom. Now you may think, well, that's kind of a flaw. But on the flip side, that's actually really good. That means that the whole chapter or the whole company isn't put in danger. Now, 500 guys is, of course, like 5 chapters, like 5 companies. That's half the chapter deployed on a battle. But then again, they're always by themselves, so whatever. But it's a really nice thing that they do. And it's actually interesting is that as far as their combat doctrines go, they're actually codex aligned. So it turns out that the Codex Astartes itself does actually bear some logic to it, because the Iron Hands themselves are logic incarnate. So the fact that their own formations and stuff reflect the Codex Astartes shows that the Codex Astartes does work, and it does fit their beliefs. It's just that they do have to sway away from it sometimes depending on the circumstance. Now, I like this chapter a lot because they're really weird, and they're very heretical because they've actually been corrupted before, but thankfully they don't talk to anybody. And I think that's the biggest strength that they have. Because they don't talk to anybody, the Inquisition couldn't catch whiff of it. But on the flip hand, they are assholes. They will literally sacrifice other Space Marines, even back before the Horus Heresy. They would sacrifice other Space Marines if it guaranteed victory, because they're all about logic. So they don't care who dies, as long as they send someone to their death so they could win the greater picture, they don't care. Now, if I was a Raven Guard or an Ultramarine, I'd take very personal offense to that he just wasted 300 of my battle brothers. But to him, the Iron Hand is going to be like, well, we won. You told us to win. We did it. We won. I don't see what the issue is. And that's how they function. But thankfully, they don't talk to anybody, so right now, the only people that they sacrifice are Imperial Guard. And lately, as far as the story's been going, they've actually started to stop being dickheads. They have actually started to try to protect some Imperial Guards and pull them out of jams that would fuck them up. Mostly because they're starting to realize that these emotion inhibitors are kind of a detriment because now they're soulless machines. So they're starting to turn those off and starting to become emotionful. Now, whether this is a good or bad thing, I don't really have much of an opinion on that. I just want more stories about the Iron Hand, because the Iron Hand would really be interesting to see in a combat, because honestly, that's just badass as fuck. They're wearing power armor, and they have like just full cybernetics showing. Come on, dude, that's fucking badass as fuck. But of course, I don't think we're gonna see them too often, only because it's hard for GW to think, well, what's heresy and what isn't heresy? Because they've already crossed the line so many times that other fans have had to call them out on it. But I would love to see it where the Iron Hands really teeter on that line between being too far gone and having to be excommunicatus traitoris, or just barely being considered loyalists. I would love to see that. Like, an Inquisitor randomly comes around and he just sees all the replacements they're doing, and he's like, whoa, you're getting rid of one of the sacred gene seed organs in your body for a cybernetic? And the guy's just sitting there like, yeah, we've been doing this for like 10,000 years. Why, what's wrong with that? Like, that would be something that would be really interesting to see. Because, again, the Iron Hands, they kind of keep to themselves. They don't really talk to anybody. But besides that, this has been me, Freeza700. I'm out. Tell me what you guys want to see next. I think I'm going to do Argol Tal next. But Argol Tal is kind of difficult because I don't know if the guy meant Argol Tal the demon, because that's a separate name, or Argol Tal himself. Because Argol Tal himself isn't a very noticeable character. He doesn't have much to him. He was very important during the Horus Heresy, but before the Horus Heresy, we don't really know anything about him. And after the Horus Heresy, he's dead. So the demon would make more sense, but I don't know. Besides that, this has been me. See you guys next time.